Our purpose today is for you to learn how to craft an effective visual aid. What is the purpose of using a visual aid with a speech? Anyone pick that up from the textbook? Why use a PowerPoint slide or a poster or any type of visual when you're speaking? Christina?
Well, some people learn better when they see.
Perfect, and you can put a period at the end of it right there. I will give you an oral citation, listen up. According to our 2016 textbook, A Pocket Guide to Public Speaking, written by Dan O'Hare, quote, research confirms that most people process information best when it is presented both verbally and visually. Christina said it better. People learn more when they see. So the main purpose of creating a visual aid to go with the speech is to help to communicate information to your listeners. It can also help to keep their attention engaged, particularly if your speech is long, complex, and detailed. People's attention can wander. So if you've got a good visual aid, particularly if you've got some transitions or animations in it, it can help to keep people's attention on your speech. So your goal today is going to be, we're going to use PowerPoint. It's not the only kind of visual aid you can create. To create a PowerPoint slide which summarizes the summary that you wrote last class. So let me just talk through the steps that you're going to go through. The first thing you need to know before you create a visual aid is, how big is your audience and how big is your space? If you're giving a poster presentation at a research conference, for example, you're going to have a poster about this big, it's on paper, it'll be on a stand beside you. You'll be in a room with 100 other people giving presentations, and individuals will wander up to you and you'll have a one-on-one conversation. And then that person can look really closely at your poster. So your font can be what? Smaller. If you're speaking to a larger group, like our class, about 17 people in our classroom, your font needs to be, that's the first thing you've got to do, is consider your audience, and that's a critical thinking skill. So you need to use your imagination to think about the space in our classroom, the size of our group, how big you're going to need to make your font and your pictures so people can see them. A good rule of thumb is 24 points. If you're in a classroom size or an auditorium with a super big screen, if your font gets smaller than 24 point, it gets harder for your viewers to see that. Okay, so the overall purpose of using a visual aid is to communicate information and to help engage your listeners. If you haven't done so already, open up our Blackboard course. Looks like most of you have. Go to Lecture Materials, and in Lecture Materials, open up the folder Comprehension and Handling Evidence. If you scroll all the way down within that folder, you're going to see an attachment. Open that up. I know some of you already have. I'll help you if you need it. The attachment is a PowerPoint, model slides and summaries. It's got these instructions on it. It's got a template for you to use, and it's got some model slides I'd like to show you. You'll also need your summary from your paper folder. You've got that. You'll need eventually to save the template to your desktop, so I'd recommend saving the whole file to your desktop. Give it an appropriate file name, speech slide, or history of basketball, or whatever your topic is. Save it to the desktop of your computer. At the end of the class, you're going to upload it to the discussion forum in Blackboard. So you're creating something now, saving it to the hard drive of the computer you're using. Then you're going to upload it to Blackboard where both you and I will have access to it later. So let's talk about how to create an effective PowerPoint slide. What should go on it? Page 15 of the syllabus contains detailed guidelines that I will use to score your research presentation, both the slide and the oral report. The slide needs to have all of these elements in it. Title, bullet points with details, a well-chosen image, or later on maybe a brief video clip, a caption that tells what the image is, references to all information, an overall layout that is pleasing, appropriate, and effective, and then your abstract is your summary that is going to go in the notes section of the slide. So this is your scoring sheet. The slide alone with the summary and the notes section is worth 32 points. So it's an important assignment. It includes proofreading. carefully proofreading all of the language in your slide to make sure there are no spelling errors. So the instructions are there. Here, the second slide of my slideshow is a template that you can use if you wish to just fill in with all the elements that need to go in your slide. Your title will be based on your main idea. Take that main idea sentence that you wrote at the beginning of your summary and boil it down into a phrase that's brief and attention-getting, but conveys the essence of your topic. So your title will communicate the main idea. You can just take your main idea sentence and create your title based on it. Bullet points that communicate supporting details. So the middle of your summary with the details in them should become bullet points. Writing bullet points is harder than you might imagine. They've got to be long enough to communicate some substantive information to your viewer, but not so long that they're hard to see, and your viewer gets lost in reading your bullet points instead of listening to you. The textbook has a good rule of thumb. They call it 6 by 6. 6 bullet points of roughly 6 words each. You can go longer than 6 words, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb and easy to remember. So just gotta hold that in mind as you're writing your bullet points. Make sure your font is legible, easy to read by most viewers from across the room. And then in a text box at the bottom, I've prepared that for you already. You can just delete this and write in it. Include all bibliographic information for your sources, where you got your information from, your book, journal article, website. This can be a smaller font. It needs to be there as a scholarly reference for you and for your viewers, but it does not need to be as visible. So you can do this in a smaller font. Then choose an image, and today I want you to stick with an image that communicates or adds information to the slide, not clip art, not cartoons. A photograph, a chart, or fine art that adds information to the slide and helps your viewer understand something. And then underneath your image, or beside it, a caption. It doesn't need to be huge. The font can be a little smaller in a text box that tells your viewer exactly what that image is and where you got it. Think newspaper captions. If you read a newspaper or look at a good newspaper online, when there's a photo, underneath it, journalists will always put exactly what that is. Who, what, when, and where. And then who took the photograph. You need all that. You've got to credit your sources of your images. So these are the things that should go on your slide. I want to show you just a few examples of slides my students have made in the past. Here's the title, skips the topic. Honoring and Preserving the Dead in Sulawesi, Indonesia. So it tells you right away what the topic is. Pretty attention-getting photo. You see a person with 2 bodies of people who have passed away, ritually caring for those bodies. So that attention gets your viewer's image, gets your viewer's attention. A caption underneath that explains what it is. Sources. National Geographic and the source of the photo. Bullet points on the slide, font is a little small, points are a little long, but they communicate the details in the summary. And his summary, this is by Zach James, a couple of years ago in my Global Religions course, is here in the notes section of the slide, so you can see how he wrote it. That's exactly what you are going to do. You're going to type your summary into the notes section of your slide. Are there any questions about how to do this? Get to it, base it on your summary. I'm here as a resource. I'll float around, see how you're doing, and just see me, talk with me if you need assistance.